guys, first video for fall 2021 rifle machine barreling class. Purpose of this video is we're going to rough out one of these. This is a bolt lapping tool, but more importantly, what it looks like from here forward is a rifle tenon. Okay, so the rifle tenon is foundational to what you do as a gunsmith. All right, if you can't thread to a shoulder and understand the math and the geometry that goes into this, you really can't do this job. So this is really important that you guys take this project seriously and understand what we're doing here. Okay, so one of the reasons why I'm doing this is I've seen some of you guys kind of working ahead or starting these projects and really understanding how to the things that you need to do to a machine on a barrel, okay, and which is good. That's what this class is about, right? We're learning how to thread a barrel tenon. So that's what we're going to cover in this video. We're going to rough this part right here out, okay, because there's a step when you do this, when you rough this part of your tenon out, there's a series of steps that you need to do before you thread. Very important, okay? So we're going to do that in this video right here, all right? So for the tools that you'll need, you're going to need your round stock. You're going to need your measuring tools, okay? Your machinist ruler, your calibers. You're going to need a file, some Dykem, a starter drill, scribe, and your lathe turning tools, all right? So we'll get into the specifics of these three tools here and how they relate to the process of turning this tenon down, but this is basically what you're gonna need in order to do this project. All right, so I'm gonna go hop on the lathe, get everything all set up, and we'll get going. Okay guys, so you can see I've got my part Dykemed, I've got it faced off, I've got it center drilled, and I've got my rough out mark line on there as well, the 3/4 of an inch, 750 thousandths. So we're ready to turn this down to what our major diameter is before we thread it. So one of the things I like to do is I like to set that number on my caliber, okay? So in this particular instance, what we're going to do, we're going to turn this down to a Remington, okay? So a Remington major for the thread, major diameter for the thread is 1062, 1 inch 62 thousandths, okay? That's the major for a Remington rifle barrel tenon. When you're turning a rifle barrel to fit into a receiver, you usually undersize that by about 5 thousandths, okay? But for this project on your print, what this tenon measurement is, this major is 1 inch 50 thousandths. Okay, so that's what we're going to turn this down to. All right, and you turn it down undersized like that so it can fit into, because each receiver is, you know, obviously a little different by varying to, you know, thousandths, 1, 2, 3 thousandths, something like that, from receiver to receiver. So you turn this part down to 1 inch 50 thousandths so that it can fit in all receivers and be able to lap out the lugs on your bolt. So what I like to do, and I talked about, is set that number, is I like to turn this first, right? So I'll bring this up here to 1 inch, 50 thousandths right there. Get as close as I can get it to right there. Okay, 1 inch, 50 thousandths, okay? And then I zero it, okay? Then I take my measurement, and it says I have roughly 200 thousandths to go. Now this is as remedial as you're gonna get, okay? You can easily do the math on this. This is 1 inch, 250 thousandths, 1 inch and a quarter. So, you know, to come up with 1 inch, 50 thousandths, you just take 200. But when you're working with other parts though, this is a good little trick to do. This kind of keeps you, you know, so it helps you map out your cut. So this says I've got 200 thousandths to go. Okay, well, I'm gonna start map out my cuts, okay? I'm gonna take 4 50 thousandths passes on this. On my machine, that's pretty decent. That's, this is not a big heavy machine, so a 50 thousandths pass, 4 passes, I'm right there, I'm ready to go, okay? So I'm gonna start getting this going. That's just a little thing I like to do. What do you guys do? That's up to you. But I'll start roughing this out and then we'll get into the next step of what we do after that, okay? All right. Okay guys, so I got this roughed out, all right? My tenon's roughed out, my Remington recoil lug fits on there, nice. Got my shoulder up nice and clean in there. So where we go from here is what I'm gonna show you in class tomorrow. Okay, tomorrow we're gonna continue a demo on this piece right here, on my part right here. Okay, and what I'm gonna show you is, at this point right now, when you're getting ready to thread your barrel, you have to do a thread relief. Say if it was a Mauser, you'd have to cut a thread relief in here, and you have to chamfer your end of your part, end of your barrel, okay? So these are 2 critical things you have to do, okay? That's what I believe, all right? There's some instructors who have in the past, at this point, would tell this tenon would be a rough length and it would probably be at least another 20 thousandths longer. And they would tell them to go ahead and thread it at this point, and after it's threaded and you're screwing your receiver on, you're getting to where, because of your threads, you don't have a thread relief, it kind of doesn't go any farther, it runs out of threads in the receiver, and you have to come back and cut a thread relief at that point and do a chamfer. Well, if you do that, and I've seen students do this on this part. I've seen 2 students do this on this part. If you do that, if you thread this at this point, you run the risk of rolling a thread over when you cut your chamfer in, or just messing up your shoulder when you go in and you cut out your thread relief, okay? So what I like to do, and I'm gonna teach you guys to do, is at this point right here, okay, the next step that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna clean up my shoulder, okay? We'll go over that in class tomorrow. I'm gonna clean up my shoulder. I'm gonna change out my tool post, and I'm gonna bring in this tool right here, one that I ground for this. Okay, and I'm gonna get in here, make my thread relief. Okay, my thread relief, I usually go to my minor diameter of what my thread is, come in here, make my thread relief, and then pull the part out, pull my tool out, okay? Tool's gonna indicate and square up that shoulder, okay? I'll show you guys how to check that for run out later, but I'm gonna come in here and do my thread relief at that point, clean up my shoulder. Now when I do that, when I clean up my shoulder, I'm gonna increase the overall length of my tenon. Does that matter at this point? No, it doesn't matter at this point, okay? Because we haven't threaded it yet, okay? So we're gonna go in here at that point after we do our thread relief and we indicate and clean up our shoulder, then we will cut this to length, all right? We'll cut this down to our final diameter, to our final dimension here of length, and then we will chamfer it. And at that point, that's when we thread it, okay? So in my career, my 44 rifles I've done now, a young career, 44 rifles I've done now, I did one rifle barrel where I did that step where I got to this point right here, then threaded it, and then went and cleaned everything up, and I rolled a thread over. And I heard another student talk about that he rolled a thread over once. That's bad, okay? You roll a thread over, you gotta file it out, and that's a bad day. That sucks. You know, all the hard work you put in to getting your barrel nice and concentric and everything, now you're sitting there with a 6-degree file, filing on it so you can get your receiver on there, okay? So what I like to do is when I'm doing my rifle tenons, my rifle barrel tenons, is every single thing that needs to be done to that tenon before threading gets done. Okay, and what I mean by that is if you have to have a thread relief, it has to be done before you thread the tenon. If it has to have a chamfer, which it does, it has to be done before you thread it. Okay, if you sit there and you go through that process where you just thread this out and come back and clean all this stuff up later, I don't understand what the purpose of that was. I don't understand that. Okay, if you say you make a mistake or something like that and you cut this too short, so what? You're going to pull your shoulder back. Okay, you'll give yourself a little bit more length. All right. You only need 3 threads to hold onto a receiver. However, if you go through this process right here, where you do all the stuff that needs to be done to the tenon before you thread it, you're not ever gonna run into that problem, all right? So, short video, we're gonna take this, I'm gonna bring this part to school tomorrow, and I'll show you the steps that I do to put a thread relief, even for a Remington, there's one, and we're gonna thread relief this for a Remington, and then we're gonna take that little relief that I do, and we're gonna clean that out and make a thread relief for a Mauser. And then we'll chamfer this end here. And then you'll be ready to thread, all right? And your barrels will flow nice and smooth onto your receivers, and you'll build rifles that shoot little tiny groups, okay? And that's the goal of this class. All right, way to go, guys.